Hello everyone, this is Namranan, and today we will be doing a video talking about the new community type VR. So as you know, MWP has ended for a while now, and a lot of metagame trends have been noticed, opinions have been made, and a survey has gone out and has come back to us. And now we are at a point where we can start doing another community VR. So this is actually my first time doing something like this, because back in Gen 7, Gen 8, we didn't really do community VRs. And type VRs in general were just like not really a talked about thing. So this is actually very abnormal for me to see, but I am welcoming it nonetheless, because this is something I have always wanted to do. So without further ado, let's just enter our username, and obviously not top 50 on ladder. I don't think I've hit top 50 yet, and I did not play in these tournaments. But yeah. So let's just have a look. Oh, actually, let me do something real quick. Sorry about that, but I decided that it would be a lot easier if I just organized it like this instead of trying to do it on the sheet. And it's also just a lot easier for all of us to read, so yeah. Anyway, with this being said, let's start from alphabetical order. So, placing Bug. Honestly, after this tournament, I believe Bug is definitely a solid mid-tier type. Not even like casually mid-tier, like I think it actually just genuinely is a decent type. It doesn't just have a good matchup against some meta types, but it also just is decently powerful because of not only Volcarona, but also a couple of other mons. Slitherwing has shown to be really obnoxious to certain types of teams. Araquanid has shown to be very powerful in the right situations. We also have Cleavor, it's just a generally powerful Pokemon as well. Bug has always... Actually, no. Bug hasn't always had this issue where they've had just so many good Pokemon but were unable to use it. The main issue with Bug has always been it's never had good defensive pivots, is the main thing that Bug has always suffered from. We've tried multiple times with Armaldo in the past. We've tried it with, and also Fortress. Fortress obviously still sees use now, but Fortress can only do so much heavy lifting for the type, and it's also not really a special wall. And even with Araquanid added, it's still very tough for the both of them to get stuff going. But I think in this generation, they have breakers that aren't nearly, or don't need as much support as they used to. Because webs are obviously still a thing that Bug can do, but I find that a lot of Bug teams don't tend to go for webs, and they instead just go for rocks, and that's it. And then they just brutally beat down the enemy team with whatever they have going for them. And it's actually really interesting to see, because this means that Bug actually is capable of playing neutral and actually playing against types and just being powerful on its own. Bug is resisted by a lot of common types in this metagame, like Fairy, Flying is also another one, and Fire is also another one that's resistant, but yeah, generally Bug is one of the types that just gets stifled by just casually being a good Pokemon. But thankfully, this generation, it seems that Bug has the mons to actually deal with this critical weakness, and we've seen it in MWP, as you can see from the usage rates. 50% win rate, even though it was only brought 6 times, and kind of used the same couple of Pokemon. This is still very different from what we usually use, and Fortress wasn't even used in all of the matches. Slitherwing was actually used in a couple of the matches as the physical pivot. And yeah, it just shows that Bug just has the mods to really get stuff going in this generation. So I do think that Bug probably does deserve to be in the B rank. B for Bug. Alright, next up we have Dark. Dark, obvious S. I don't think this needs any introduction. I mean, you literally just saw the usage stats for Dark. It's It's actually not as high as you would think it is, but it is still a really good type. I'd probably put it at the bottom of S, though. Actually? No, I wouldn't even put it at S. I think I'd put it in A after seeing this tournament, because it seems to be very easy to prep, or not very easy to prep for, but it seems to be very weak to decent prep. Oh, and just so you know, I think I'm gonna make 2 different tier lists. I'm gonna make a tier list for tours. I'm gonna make a tier list for ladder. So this is the tours tier list right now, and at the end of this tier list, I'll just shuffle things around to show where I would put it for ladder and have like brief explanations as to why. But yeah, Stark has actually didn't perform super well. Well, it performed decently in MWG, but I definitely think it may have been a little overhyped, and it seems like it wasn't as oppressive as I thought it would be in the tournament either, because I've watched every game, and it didn't seem as oppressive. Meowscarada and Darkrai cores are definitely showing to be very powerful, but as well as some Hoopa teams as well. But Dark in general is just, I'd say it's a very strong type, but I don't think it's at the top anymore. I don't think it's at the top. It's definitely still a very strong contender, but after this tour, I think Dark is definitely not a super top type anymore. It's just a very, very solid type. But yeah. Now, for types that need no introduction. Dragon. I mean, I'll let the usage rate speak for itself, and its 50% win rate. This type is ridiculous. Has really solid mons, a lot of different options that it can use as well. It just has a way to deal with every single type in the game, and that's like the big thing. Because even against Fairy, Dragon still has tools to really bring that type down, and that's with a powerful mon like Fluttermane and Hatterene as well. Dragon can just do it all this generation. It is an extremely, extremely good type. And even though it didn't have an insane win rate in NWP, that was because people were actively trying to prep for it. And that's just, they're only prepping for a version of a Dragon team. Because there's just some Dragon teams that beat teams that are prepped for a certain other type of Dragon team. Like maybe a team that's prepped for Raging Bolt can't beat a team that has a Walking Wake or even a Choice Specs Latios instead of a Raging Bolt. Maybe their team isn't ready for that, and instead they get crushed by it. It's very possible. And that's part of the reason why Dragon's just so good. It's not only just very powerful, but it also just has a ton of options, and a ton of scary and viable options as well. That is a big thing in Dragon's favor. And also pair this with the fact that Healing Wish Latios is just basically a get out of jail free card for any sort of offensive build for the type. This type is unbelievably good. It's just unreal. It is unreal how good this type is. I'll let the MWP matches speak for themselves. That type is ridiculously good. I don't think it's broken, but it is absurdly good. And the reason I don't think it's broken is because, well, we'll get into that in some other video, but yeah, Dragon is extremely good. Electric, I think probably one of the bottom tier types. I don't know if I'll put it in C or D. I'll put it in C for now and see how it goes. But yeah, Electric struggles. Even with the Oricorio idea that was brought up by WinCon, it still struggles to really do anything against a lot of the meta types, because Dragon completely crushes Electric just naturally. It doesn't even have to prep for it. Electric can just get easily bodied by Dragon, and a lot of other types just casually also beat Electric as well. And it doesn't help that Raging Bolt is also a Pokemon that everyone is trying to prep for. So Electric as a whole just gets naturally beaten down by Raging Bolt prep. Whether it's through a ground type or if it's through like a very strong breaker, and it doesn't help that Electric also uses Raging Bolt as one of their main mons, so that isn't helping them at all. But yeah. Electric is just sadly in a spot where it can do stuff against certain types, but against the types that it can't do super well against, it is just in a constant losing battle, and you have to fight tooth and nail for every single match with this type. It didn't win a single game in MWP. One of the games it should have won, but Supercell Slam incident. No more needs to be said about that. But even with that situation, that person had to play their heart out in order to even get Electric into that spot in the first place. And yeah, they got RNG'd, but it still shows that Electric really has to like fight tooth and nail for any sort of success in the tournament scene, at least. So I think it will go at the bottom for now. I would say it's bad. Yeah, it's kind of a bad type, but it's definitely got some good mons. I think there just needs to be either a little more exploration into what they can do, or maybe, I don't know, something with Electric is just, I think Electric is just very naturally flawed. There's not much you can do, especially with the lack of hidden power. Coverage is very hard to come by for the type. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Fairy. I don't think this is shocking to anyone. I think I've always said that Fairy should have been one of the top types. Before MWP even started, I said, and I'll keep saying this every single time, but I said at the beginning of MWP that Fairy should be a really strong type, because it goes well against Dragon and Dark, who were at the time to be thought the top types, and it just has very solid matchups into literally everything. Or not literally everything, but it has very solid matchups into a lot of the meta types. So I thought, yeah, Fairy should be a very obviously seen a lot type, but it took a bit. But Fairy did end up almost getting a 70% win rate with 23 games. That is insanely good. It's the highest win rate in the entire tournament, even with fringe types like Normal and Poison getting a couple of wins and having disproportionately high win rate. It still has a high win rate in spite of those. So Fairy is just very good, as it turns out. Now, it still can get brutalized by Steel, but against a lot of the other types, even against stuff like Fire, or Flying, or Grass, or Poison, it just does really well into all of them, and it's because it has extremely powerful Pokemon. And before, the issue with Fairy was that there wasn't really a good way to make defensive pivoting work with the type. But, as we've seen in the games, Klefki kind of just either sack itself or come in and do whatever, and then one of Fairy's insane breakers just comes in, and with good play, Hatterene keeps hazards off from their side of the field, and Fluttermane can just absolutely decimate types on its own because it's extremely powerful. And with screen support and those powerful breakers, yeah, it's no wonder that Fairy has been able to do the crazy things that it's done in this tournament, including being Poison, which that should say all you need to know about how good Fairy is right now. The fact that it's capable of beating Poison says a lot. But yeah, I mean, I've already talked a ton about why I think Fairy is good. I could probably make a whole video talking about why I think Fairy is good, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now. And I think I would definitely say it's maybe not the #1 type. I think Dragon's probably still the #1 type, but I would say this is definitely right under Dragon. And I don't think these two are contestable. I think these two are absolutely the two best types in the game, which is very funny because Dragon and Fairy obviously hate each other, but, you know, it is what it is. Fighting. Fighting has kind of fallen off a little, I think. Because before, I think people thought it was an A-rank type. Nowadays, I think it's just, I'd say it's like a very high B, low A type. Its matchups, especially with the rise of Fairy, I think its matchups are just not that amazing. And fighting is kind of just very predictable now, so it's kind of suffering the same issue with Fire, which we'll get into Fire later, but it's suffering the same issue with Fire where it's almost extremely easy to prep for, and if you don't prep for it, you aren't necessarily in a horrible spot, but you definitely still need to be careful with like a couple mons like Gallade, and sometimes the Urshifu set can be a bit crazy as well. But yeah, fighting is just not super amazing. And if you look at the results here, it has a negative win rate with less games than Fairy, by the way. And it also just didn't really seem super strong in the games it was brought. I do think the Iron Hands core teams are definitely the way to go for the type. But yeah, it's not a bad type. I definitely think it's high B or low A. It's definitely a very competitive type, but it is definitely struggling for relevance in like the upper echelons of type viability. But yeah, it's definitely still a viable type. Not unviable, but definitely not as strong as it used to be. Next we have Fire. Fire probably goes below these two. Now, this is only for tours. If I was putting Fire in ladder, it would be in a completely different spot. Not spoiling yet, but yeah, Fire in tours, I think, is basically a cheese type at this point. Because everyone preps for Fire, everyone knows how to prep for Sunfire, and we've seen in this tournament that Fire can just get bodied very easily by types that it should win against, but they don't. And yeah, there's just not much to be said. Sunfire is just extremely predictable. Same 6 mons that get brought every single time. It's just there's like very little variety in the Pokemon sets as well. It's just very easy to predict Sunfire. If there's a sunless archetype of Fire, maybe that was viable, that is. Maybe it could go a bit higher, but yeah, right now it's just a cheese type, which you can cheese with other types way better, like Dragon you can cheese better with, and not just lose outright to good hazard control or tough matchup. Or, you know, having your own sun used against you with photosynthesis uses on pretty much almost every single type. But yeah, Fire not doing too hot right now. But next we have Flying. Now I hate this type as a spectator because this type makes games take extremely long, and I don't like that very much. And I have a whole 30+ minute video spectating one of these games, just raw letting the replay play out, and it still took that long. This type is something else. I just can't with this type. But yeah, that's just my little soapbox on Flying for a bit. But yeah, Flying is actually pretty good as a type. There's a reason it can stall out games as well as it does, and it's because it has a very solid defensive core. And that defensive core can lead into some very strong breakers. You've seen Galarian Moltres actually come out a couple of times and do some havoc there. And you've also seen Zapdos, the rise of Zapdos actually, because I don't think Zapdos has been seen a ton before this tournament, but Zapdos has been seen quite a bit. And it sometimes it's sub-talk, sometimes it's actually offensive. But yeah, Zapdos has been doing alright. We've also seen Zapdos Galar as well, which I always love that. But yeah, if we look at we can just look at the type. Lots of Pokemon on Flying that gets used, and it just has very solid Pokemon in general. But yeah, it has a ton of fringe options that it can use. Like we had the Salamence team, and I think I know what the Salamence set was now, but I'm not gonna spoil it just in case the team builder doesn't want me to potentially leak their strat. But yeah, a lot of good Pokemon on Flying. Articuno, Dragonite that can run offensive or defensive, Thundurus, Therian. We also had regular Moltres as well, the triple Cantonian Bird core. Yeah, just a lot of solid options on Flying, and because, again, just like with Dragon, the amount of variety Flying has works to its advantage greatly, and this time it's a defensive type, so it's actually it can be really brutal to prep for something like Articuno and then just not have Articuno on the team, and instead it's a Sulfus Tornadus Therian that's just somehow completely walling your team. And it doesn't die to rocks because Regenerator and U-turn and its super speed and super bulk. yeah, Flying has just got a lot of stuff going on right now. A lot of good stuff, mind you. But yeah, Flying is very good. I would say maybe not even A rank, maybe it should be S. Because it low-key is one of the paragons of Monotype. Like, if you don't prep for these 3 types, I think that you are definitely going to have a rough time. Like, if you can't play against these 3 types, yeah, you're definitely going to have a very bad time trying to do anything in the metagame. So yeah, I think Flying could go S. The ordering might have to change, though. But yeah. Next up we have Ghost. Ghost, I'm actually going to put high B. Definitely high B. High B or low A. Actually, I think high B probably makes sense. And I think Fighting should go above Ghost. So I'll put Ghost here, and the other 2 are back there. But yeah, Ghost is actually low-key maybe sleeper OP, but I'm not 100% on that yet. Because it does have some really powerful Pokemon in Fluttermane, Dragapult, and Gholdengo, as well as Ceruledge, but after that it kind of needs to... It doesn't really have a solid defensive core, which, again, that's always been an issue with some of the types in this metagame. The lack of solid defensive core can really make it difficult to work with, and also the defensive Pokemon that it does have don't really have the pivoting moves to get their super strong breakers in. Like, you have a breaker like Spectrier that just has absurd special attack and can do insane things with choice specs. You have Gholdengo, who can use Choice Scarf really well. You have Fluttermane, who is also an absurd special attacker. You have Dragapult, who can be a really strong physical or special attacker. You have Ceruledge, who's also a strong physical attacker. If Ghost was able to get any of these Pokemon in consistently with ease, it would be insanely good, I believe. But as it is right now, they do not have the mons to really have that kind of pivoting style work. They kind of have Dragapult, but Dragapult doesn't really do it as well as some other Pokemon can, or some other mons can, which is why we have seen Pekka a couple of times, but it didn't really do that well. But yeah, Ghost, I think, is a little underused, but I understand why. It's because of Dark's prevalence, and some Dragon builds can definitely give Ghost a really hard time. So yeah, Ghost does have a couple of rough matchups that are in the top types. But I do think that it is actually surprisingly strong, and it shouldn't be underestimated. It's weird, because I think Ghost has like an even-ish to losing matchup against the highest tier types, but I would say it probably beats 90% of the types below the top types. And it's like really brutal how strong Ghost can just beat all those other types on its own. That's what I think, at least. But maybe there are some differing opinions on that, but I definitely think Ghost is really solid. So I think high B makes sense for now. Maybe it can go up to A, we'll see. Grass. Grass is going to go with Electric. Very sad that this type is not good. I think Grass has a lot of stuff that it could do, but sadly it's just not strong because of the prevalence of Sun, Fire. Dragon is really good, Flying is really good, Fairy kind of beats that type naturally with its Pokemon. Yeah, it's just, Grass isn't going to have a great time in this metagame with the top types and the semi-top types. It just feels like everything in the metagame can just kind of bowl over it. There's nothing it can really do. Even with Ogerpon Hearthflame, it can't even do that much. So yeah, really sad story for Grass, but it is what it is. Alright, next we got Ground. Ground, I believe... Ground's weird, because Ground did not perform very well in this MWP. 35% win rate in 20 games. Not exactly top-type material, but it does still seem to be somewhat of a threat, so I think I'll keep it in B for now. I'll put it below Ghost, though, which that might be controversial to a lot of people, but I would say, I'd say currently Ground is not better than Ghost, in my opinion. I think I definitely think ground does have a better solid matchup spread into the top types, but Ghost is just a better type to bring in general when it comes to how many types it can just straight up beat. I don't know. I'll have to consider this during the tierings, but yeah, ground to me, I'm not gonna say it's a fraud type, but it definitely didn't perform as well as I thought it would. I thought it'd do a lot better, but it did not do as well as I thought it would. Next up we have Ice. Ice, actually we'll just put Ice in D tier. Ice was literally the only type that wasn't brought in MWP at all. And I think there's a very good reason for it. It's because of the prevalence of, I mean, the top type is Dragon. One of the top types is Dragon and Flying. But why do that when you can just bring a Raging Bolt Dragon team that can beat the Dragon, or a Raging Bolt Dragon team that can beat the Flying team? There's just no point, right? So why would you risk such a matchup fish for a type that's otherwise really, really bad? Yeah, it's really sad, because even with the snow buffs in this generation, Ice still just isn't that good. And I can't even say there's a really definitive reason why. I think it's just a multitude of things. It's the type just not working. Well, not working, but it's the type just being slightly confused about what it wants to be, and also just having not the greatest hazard situation, because it needs to rely on either Piloswine or Mamoswine to set rocks, and do they even have a good spiker? I actually have no idea, but yeah, Ice just struggles to play the strong metagame very well, and I think that's very sad. But I mean, Ice has chronically been one of the worst types in Monotype history, and it looks like it's going to continue that in this generation. Very brutal, but it is what it is. Normal. Normal can go slightly above Ice. I think normal is definitely worse than these two, for sure. Although I'm not gonna lie, I think there might be some untapped potential in normal, but it's a bit too risky, because I think even if we unlock the potential of normal, it'd probably only go all the way up to B, or like high C. But I do think normal can cook, but as it is right now, I think it's really bad. And I would definitely put it below Electric and Grass. It just doesn't have... It has one of the greatest defensive cores in the game, and it has a really good offensive Pokemon. But again, the lack of pivoting, the lack of good hazard control, it's just biting into normal, and it's really bad for it. So yeah, it can't really do what it wants to do. Ditto is hard carrying this type, by the way, but yeah, I can't really put it in the same tier as Electric and Grass. I think it's below it. Next we got Poison. Poison I would put in high C, maybe even low B. I'll put it in low B right now, because Poison is basically budget flying, if that makes sense. Poison is basically if you want to run a slow bulky team, but you don't want to have to deal with getting toxic. That's basically one of the main reasons you would want to use Poison, because otherwise flying just kind of does what Poison wants to do a little bit better, with some exceptions obviously, because flying is a slow bulky core that has some really strong breakers. Poison is a slow bulky core with some really strong breakers. The difference between Poison and Flying is that Flying is immune to spikes, which are very prevalent in this metagame, and they also are immune to Earthquake and stuff like that. Poison gets hit by spikes and is super effective to Earthquake, and can also get a... Well, actually, the Arena Trap interaction doesn't matter in this case, but yeah, Poison types are just generally... Our Poison teams are basically just immune to Toxic, and that's like their big selling point. And that is still a good selling point, let's not be fooled. It is still a really good selling point. Not being able to get Toxic is very powerful. And good Poison teams can still feel very hard to break, but yeah, flying just kind of does its job way better right now. So I can't really justify putting it any higher than where I have it right now at B. But I do think Poison is still somewhat solid. It's just that flying is just kind of a better version of it at the moment. But yeah, it still has some very good defensive Pokemon, and Iron Moth is still a really strong breaker. It can work, and it almost worked, but Fairy, unfortunately, is just way too broken in that matchup. But yeah, we'll leave Poison there. My beloved type, Psychic. So Psychic got brought. It was a very unstandard team, but they kind of had to do an unstandard team because there's no way a standard team is going to be able to compete in this level. But yeah, I put Psychic here. The reason I put Psychic here, and yes, Psychic better than normal? Are you insane? A little. Because people aren't willing to experiment with these lower tier types because obviously, why would you do that? And it makes sense why you wouldn't want to do that, because why would you want to like throw a match just to experiment? Unless you've already won the week, there's no reason to experiment with new types. So yeah, I totally understand why Psychic, Electric, and Grass just got very little usage, because there's no need to do any discovery. You just need to play what's strong and win. That's what you need to do in a tournament setting. And Psychic is unfortunately one of those types that you just need to invest way too much time into to actually figure out what's actually good on the type and what can actually work on the type. But yeah, Psychic can work. Psychic is basically a worse version of Fire, where it can just straight up stat check a lot of types. Or not stat check, it can just like straight up just eliminate a bunch of types, just raw bowl through types with either Psychic spam, or it can use screens and use Pokemon like Armorogue or Galley or any other setup sleeper, Hatteran also, and they just completely, they can just become a completely unbeatable monster and just run over the game. That is what Psychic can do currently. But yeah, as I just said, Fire kind of does that bowling over type fish type way better. It also doesn't help that Psychic loses to Dark pretty hard, because Meowscarada kind of brutally beats the type. And Dragon also actually has a fairly decent matchup into it as well, due to the double steel core. Just kind of making it hard for any of Psychic's good mons to do anything, and even Armorogue still suffers against that core as well. So yeah, it's very rough for Psychic. It takes a little bit too much effort, which is why I don't have it above Grass. I would put it above Grass if I was completely biased, but I do think that Grass just has a little bit more going for it in that regard. But yeah, we'll move on to the next one, which is Rock. Rock, oh my god, Rock. So I'm pretty sure Rock did get brought, right? Yeah, Rock got brought quite a few times. But yeah, Rock, definitely not in the same tier as these types. These types are at least like, these types can cheese out wins against in a tournament setting, against a neutral matchup. These types cannot. Normal literally has no good matchups, naturally, and Rock and Ice just lose in matchups where they should have the advantage. So yeah, that's really brutal. And you would think with Rock and Ice both being good against flying that it would be brought a little bit more, but no. These types are not good. And Rock is just really rough to work with, because again, a lot of the prep for Raging Bolt and a bunch of other strong electric types just kind of ends up biting Rock in the butt, because Earthquake, hard priority, just stronger Pokemon, just stronger breakers. It just makes it hard for Rock to do anything, and it's really hard for the type to work. But maybe I'm being a bit too hard on it. Maybe it could go to C, but as it is right now, it's probably around here. And also, these tiers low-key don't matter that much for what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to, it just makes it easier for me to order them. But yeah, this is just how I feel. So, Steel. Steel going up to S immediately. This is definitely a premier type you must prep for. It is one of the highest brought types, and it's also performing really well. yeah, this type is extremely good. I would put Steel. Actually, I'll put Steel above Fairy. Dragon, Steel, Fairy, I think are the top 3, and then Flying is like fringe 4th. But yeah, Steel just has way too many good mons, and it has way too good synergy with all of its mons. Steel is just insanely solid type. The fact that it's still doing as well as it did, even when it was supposedly falling off, I think that just says a lot about Steel being good. But yeah, I mean, I don't have that much to say about Steel, but it's a ridiculously solid type. And now the last type is Water. So Water, definitely high A. Water absolutely is not going into S, and that's because Water is like low-key a potential man mod, or a potential man type, where they can do everything. They can beat every type, but they can't because you have to basically get the right matchup with the right team. Water is a Swiss Army knife. It has a tool for every situation, every archetype, every single any type of team you can make with Water. Like, Water literally can do everything, but it can't do everything, if that makes sense. They're basically a jack of all trades, master of none. Although I would argue I'd still say it's really solid as a balance type. But yeah, I would say jack of all trades, master of none is a good way to describe Water. Because it can do a lot of things, and it can do really well in a bunch of matchups, but it needs to get those right matchups with those specific teams. But yeah, good builders can make Water look really broken. But I think for the average player, or even the average tour player, Water is just kind of like a solid option in case you want to like cover a wide breadth of matchups. And even then you might still lose. But yeah, Water, extremely solid. I may have just bad-talked it, but I'm only bad-talking it because it has to compare to these 4 titans of Monotype. Water is just basically just the stopgap between that. And yeah, that'll be it for the list. So let me just order these. So I think Dragon first, Steel second, Fairy third, and Flying fourth. I think this does make a lot of sense. I know people are probably going to say that I'm overrating the hell out of Fairy, but this is my list, and I think Fairy is genuinely number 3. I mean, the results speak for itself, in my opinion. But yeah, Water, Dark, and Fighting. I think I put Water. Water's definitely at the top. Dark definitely above Fighting. I think, yeah. I think I'll leave Fighting here. Ghost definitely belongs here. Ground belongs here. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this layout, actually. So yeah, this is a tournament list. This is for tours. And what the result I'm gonna put in is also representative of tours, but I want to show really quick, or actually let me do that right now while I wait. I'm gonna time skip this so you don't have to watch me put in things, but yeah. Alright, just wanted to make sure I showed my responses before I moved it along. But yeah, I put the order in directly as you saw it in the tier list. And we shall submit. But yeah. Now I will make the ladder tier list. So, with ladder in mind, let's do the following. So we're immediately dropping Fairy. Fairy is dropping to probably where Ghost is right now. And the reason why Fairy drops is because people do not like Fairy on the ladder. Especially mid-ladder, people really do not like facing against Fairy. So if they know that there's a Fairy user on the ladder, there will be a bunch of ridiculous teams brought to specifically deal with Fairy, but lose to anything else. So yeah, if your goal is to try and get high ladder, I would say Fairy is like not a great type to do it with, especially because there's a lot more poison users, and Steel is also very popular in the ladder as well. So yeah, you need to be really careful using this type. Maybe low A. Maybe B is a bit too harsh, but yeah, it definitely falls off significantly in ladder. And this is coming from Fairy's greatest champion, so yeah. Flying is still solid. It is still really good, but you need to have patience if you want to use that type. You cannot get impatient while using this type. And if you want to play every game like it's a tour game and you want to climb doing that, by all means, use flying. But yeah, you have to be patient if you want to use this type. It's still very good though on ladder. Water, I would still say same thing. Steel and Dragon are just too good naturally. Dark I would actually say belongs in the S rank for ladder types. It just has it doesn't have to worry about being prepped against, because a lot of people don't really prep for Dark that intensely. Their version of prepping for Dark is usually just bringing a type that's strong against it, not really bringing like the anti-Dark mods. In higher ladder, definitely it will be prepped for more. Like in 1600s plus, it will definitely be prepped for more. But I think that in general, I think Dark is way more solid in ladder. Comparatively to in tours, I think Dark is way more solid. Ghost probably moves up to A as well. Ground stays here, I think. Bug, Fire. Actually, Fire goes all the way up here, because people aren't actively prepping for Sunfire. So, yeah, Fire goes up here. It doesn't go to S, but it does go to A. And it goes to the top of A as well. It goes over water. This type is stupid on ladder. I will just say it. It's really stupid to run into, especially if you're not prepped for it. Like, if you're trying to use a fun little team and you run into Sunfire, yeah, good luck, bro. Hope you got something to prep for that. But yeah, the rest of these, I would say I would move Rock up a little bit, as Rock does have good matchups against the top types, so it actually is pretty decent in ladder. But yeah, I think the rest of this makes sense. But yeah, the reason I moved Ghost up, which I know a lot of people are probably wondering, I do think Ghost is a really good ladder type. It just, especially Screens Ghost just absolutely decimates a lot of people on the ladder, and I've seen multiple people get very high with it. So yeah, I think Ghost is definitely really good. And with that, that would be the end of this video. So minor channel announcement. I might do another video tomorrow. Very unlikely, but if you see another upload tomorrow, just know that I was thinking about it. And after this, we will probably discuss the type viability rankings if they go up. Actually, no, the form closes on the 13th, and they'll probably do results on like 2 days later. So yeah. But after this, I'm going to start talking about Mom PL, because there is one specific metagame that I'm very fond of and I want to actually take a look into. So I'll keep you guessing as to which metagame that is, but until then, I'll see you guys later.